Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians, and welcome to our Tuesday meeting. I'm Jason Shank, your Sergeant at Arms, filling in for Tom Collette, who's on vacation right now. Just got done apparently with an hour and a half bike ride, so he's getting some exercise in. So we got the B team today. So we've got a good crowd of hecklers out there, so this should be fun. But welcome, everybody. A couple house cleaning items real quick. Guests, for visiting Rotarians, please identify yourself in the chat and we will recognize you. If you're watching on YouTube, register your participation by sending an email to info@rotarygainesville.org. Again, that's info@rotarygainesville.org. Today, for our song and our pledge, if I could invite in person, Pete Enwall. Come on up, buddy.
Fellow Rotarians, I want you to know that I tried to eat natural foods for quite a long time, but then I learned that most people die from natural causes, so I quit. So we're going to sing God Bless America today. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. Please join me in pledging allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, Pete. And today we have our invocation via Zoom from Ian Fletcher. Ian Fletcher.
Thank you, Jason. Good afternoon, everyone. Let us pray. O everlasting one, you are the one that unites. As Rotarians, we work in one accord to help support our club, its members, and our community. We believe in service above self. We believe in helping one another. We believe in seeing a need and working together to fulfill that need. As human beings, our perspective may differ, but that doesn't stop us from working together as one. You are aware of the needs, ailments, illnesses, and that many faces. Please help us to overcome them all. Supply every need and provide healing for every ailment and illness. As the club prepares for the fundraising events that have helped many organizations in this community, please provide a clear direction for us to follow and continual support the organizations in our community. We thank you for all things. Amen.
Amen, and thank you, Ian. Okay, I don't believe we have any guests of Rotarians today. If I missed anybody, please stand up. Okay. All right. And for our visiting Rotarians, again, if you could go ahead in the chat. If you're visiting today, please update in the chat box and we will definitely recognize you. All right. We're going to move right into announcements. Today we have Bob Mounts with an announcement via Zoom. Bob, take it away.
Thank you. And this would be the penultimate. I had to learn late in life what that meant. Next to the last reminder that November 6th, Friday, is the deadline for submitting nominations for the Ethics in Business Award. This is a prestigious award won by Ed Ellett last year. I know you can get it in. We're anxious to see those nominations and involve the students at the university in the selection process too. So thank you very much.
Okay, Bob, thank you very much. And with that, we're going to go through in the chat box. If there's anyone that is visiting or anything that we've missed, we'll circle back with that. And I'd like to go ahead and invite our awesome president, Matthew Brady, up. Come on up, Matthew.
Thank you, Jason. You're anything but the B team, my friend. I greatly appreciate you stepping in. There's not a person in this room that's B team. I appreciate all and everybody that continually steps up in many ways. And we definitely do not have a B team speaker today, so I'm pretty amped up. He's asked me several times, and I guess I need to get a lot more excited, but it's showing because I really am. Couple quick items. We want to give him plenty of time today. But as I mentioned last week, Saturday was World Polio Day, kind of important aspect of Rotary. And thanks to this guy sitting here next to me, that's our speaker today, he went out and he was able to go to the city commission and the county commission. The city commission already issued to us a proclamation declaring the 24th as World Polio Day. And I'll send a copy of this. I will not read the whole thing, but it's basically the formality. The city of Gainesville recognizing October 24th, World Polio Day. And as we are here right now, the commission will be approving the similar proclamation for the county in recognizing October 24th as World Polio Day. So I appreciate TJ doing that. It's something, it's kind of like, hey, we should have done this years ago. So just a nice feature that to recognize in the community. That's good for not just our club, but all Rotarians in the community that we recognize that. So thank you again, TJ. Yeah, round of applause. So Saturday was a Vibrant Club seminar. There was 6 or 7 that attended. Honestly, I walked up here and I have no idea where the list of attendees I placed. So I know several did. I appreciate that. I said there was an award. We were recognized as 3rd in the district for giving to the foundation. So we've continually been in that top tier. Who knows where this year will be, but I'll tell you this, next week's speaker, how timely is Russ Miller, and he'll be talking about the Rotary Foundation. And I've heard Russ give a foundation presentation twice, and it's a really good presentation. I've enjoyed it. When we were looking and planning for the year, he was the first to come in mind, and Jenny went out and took care of that and had him arranged commit to speaking to us about the foundation. So hopefully you'll make that next week. Remember, blood drive Tuesday the 10th coming up in 2 weeks. So that'll be here on site. I've read a lot of details from them, the safety precautions and protocol that's in place. Right now, it seems like there's always a critical blood need, but there definitely is now with people limited in their ability to go give. So if you can, please do so. So talking about today's speaker, if you have not heard, we have an election going on. I mean, I know that may be a surprise to a few of you. I have not heard anything about it out in the news, but a little thing called an election. There's also a little thing called a pandemic going on. And there's a lot of things like our hybrid meeting and adapting to circumstances. Our election process has not, been exempt from needing to adapt. And so, again, this is not a political presentation, but this is a, logistical, procedural type presentation. And, it's my honor to recognize our fellow Rotarian, friend, committed to so many different areas, working on fun and fellowship. He's working on these proclamations. He's working with his lovely fiance on the dictionary project. And he's committed to some other things coming up in this year. So on top of all that, very busy time of the year for him. But our fellow Rotarian friend will now speak to us about the election process, Mr. TJ Pyche.
Hi, everybody. How are you? speaking to being on the B team, I like to think I'm actually the captain of the B team with no interest in being on the A team, because that's where you get attention. I'm excited to be here, excited to give this presentation. I think it's been about 9 months since I gave a presentation that was not on Zoom. So work with me, but hopefully at the end of this, you'll know a little bit more about how our elections are run, and a little bit more about how we work to keep elections safe in this county. All right. And I do have a presentation. I'm ready to give it without it, but it's sometimes more fun to give it with it. And I will say before I start, my focus is really going to be on answering questions. So the presentation portion of this should only take about half the time. But if you have questions, the best thing that we can do as elections officials is be transparent with you about the process and tell you exactly what the process is. So please be thinking of questions as you're listening, because you'll be surprised the number of considerations that are made in the elections process so that we can easily answer the questions that you may have. How are we looking on our PowerPoint? All right. Does anybody have any questions to start? And I will say that Supervisor Barton, the elected supervisor, does send her regrets. She was originally asked to do this, but unfortunately, because of the pandemic, because of the election, and because of so many other things, isn't able to be here with us. But I promise she's on the A team, so you'll have to deal with me today. Okay, start without it. All right, everybody. Obviously, we are in a very busy time for elections officials. We're 1 week away from the 2020 general election. November 3rd, 2020, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., the polling places will be open. Many of you who have driven by the Tower Road Branch Library or the Millhopper Branch Library have seen the enormous lines that we're experiencing, the great interest that we have in the upcoming election. One of the things that the pandemic has driven is a huge increase in interest in voting by mail. So compared to 2016, when we had 29,000 vote by mail ballots returned for the entire election, this year we've had more than 49,000 already, with a week to go until election day. So our office's expectation is come election night, we will likely see a turnout close to 80%, if not above 80%, which would eclipse what we saw in 2016 when we saw a 73% turnout. We haven't had a turnout at or above 80% since 2008. And everything is tracking to either meet that number or exceed it for this election. It's not lost on us as elections officials that much attention is paid to the processes that we have and to the security or the protections that are given to your ballots. So compared to 2016, when our office and offices like ours throughout the state of Florida really got a lot of attention that, perhaps we would have rather done without, we are so much better prepared this year for anything that is thrown our way. Last week, many of you may have seen that there was a fake phishing email that was sent out to a number of voters of a particular party, claiming to be from an organization that is, I wouldn't say affiliated, but supports the opposite political affiliation. And it basically said, if you don't do these things, we're going to come after you. Within 10 minutes of receiving that email, our office, because of many of the things that we've been able to, the partnerships we've been able to forge in the last year or the last 2 years, really, we were able to get on the phone with the FBI, have the Department of Homeland Security with that email so they could ascertain exactly where it came from. And again, within a day, we knew that it wasn't from that organization, and it's been reported that it was from a foreign country. I don't think that the elections infrastructure 4 years ago was prepared to act as quickly as we were able to act this year. And that really speaks to the work that offices like ours and every level of government have done to make sure that we're able to more quickly respond. In terms of keeping the actual elections infrastructure safe, some things remain the same, but there's also been enhancements in security. So one of the main things that we have is the fact that we have a paper ballot. Every Florida county, you vote on a paper ballot. If we needed to, we could go back by hand and count every single ballot. There's no electronic ballot. Everything is done by paper, and those ballots are kept for 22 months. So it's important to realize, obviously, we use these machines, we trust these machines, and we rely on these machines. But if push came to shove, we do have the ability to count everything by hand. Those machines are rigorously tested and have to be approved at the state level. And then they do a public test of the machines to ensure that they are counting, as they are supposed to, all of the different elections. Okay, we can keep going. That's Josiah T. Walls. He's the person for whom our building is named. He was the first African-American elected to Congress from Florida. He was elected in 1870. It wasn't until 1992 that the second, third, and fourth African-Americans were elected to Congress from Florida. Josiah T. Walls wasn't born in Alachua County, but he did spend the majority of his life here. So he is a very important local historical figure that I think over the course of time, many people have forgotten who he is. So we take it upon ourselves to try to tell folks again and remind them that such an important figure did come from Alachua County. All right, so going back, paper ballots. The fact that we test those machines so rigorously. There is a public test done of the machines prior to Election Day. This year it was done on October 12th. That test, which again, done in public, shows that the machines are counting as they are supposed to. So it shows that if 5 people vote for candidate A, 3 people vote for candidate B, the machine is going to reflect that. And again, one of the things that we have on our side is just how transparent the processes are. If you wanted to watch a canvassing board meeting and see exactly what it is that goes into counting ballots, you could watch one either on your Facebook or on our website right now. The process itself is more transparent than ever. Physical infrastructure or hardware within our office. We have many people view the elections infrastructure as just this one thing, but it's made up, just like your businesses or your organizations, of very many different parts. So when you talk about voter registration, that's a completely separate system from the actual ballot counting system. So if there's an issue with the voter registration system, that doesn't mean there's an issue with the ballot counting system. The voter registration system is shared statewide, essentially, with us controlling those who are in this county or their records within this county. But the actual ballot machines are not connected to the internet. They do not get connected to the internet. And in order to get the results to us, they actually fax them on election, or essentially fax them on election night. So those, the level of security paid to those, because they are closed systems, is different than what you have in the voter registration system, because you can't access those via the internet. So that's certainly something that lends itself to the level of security. Next slide. All right, let's see where we go. The big thing that we've been trying to do over the last 3 years is continue to build trust in elections. That involves being transparent, doing more community presentations, being honest when we're asked questions, and being quick to answer those questions. Because really and truly, the whole system, like so many other of our systems, is rested on trust. So if we don't have the trust of the community, or if we don't have the trust of voters, at some point there is likely a breaking point where if you all don't believe what we're reporting to be true, then that's obviously a very bad thing for our democracy. And we work really hard to try to make sure that we do build that trust, and folks are understanding of what our processes are. 2020 has brought a number of changes to elections in Alachua County. One of the main things that you'll see compared to 2016 is the introduction of Spanish language. Our office prior to the 2018 election was sued for not providing Spanish language information. As part of that lawsuit, we've now made it so that everything you receive from us, whether it's your voter information card, some type of mailer in the mail, or if you choose, your ballot, is available in Spanish. So in terms of accessibility, that's certainly a wonderful thing for folks who either speak Spanish or only speak Spanish, or people for whom Spanish is their native language, because now they're able to read the ballot and have an understanding of what they're voting on in a language that they may understand better. Vote by mail is something else that has changed considerably. One of the things that, looking back to 2018 and 2016, that it was really a hole in the elections infrastructure, has now really become a strength. So one of the things that our office was often criticized for was the number of signatures that we were rejecting, or the number of ballots that we were rejecting. In 2016, that number was north of 1.5%, so 15 out of every 1,000 ballots. Luckily today, that number is below 0.5%, so 5 for every 1,000 ballots. We want that number to be 0, but it should be noted that there are some people who will try to fraudulently send in ballots. There was a man in Manatee County not very long ago who tried to vote on behalf of his deceased wife, and he was, unfortunately for him, arrested. And there are processes where we do have the ability to find out if you're doing something like that. And it's very important to know that it is a crime to try to do something like that. So yeah, not a good idea to try to vote on behalf of somebody, or to vote on behalf of someone who is deceased, if they still remain on the voter record for some reason. All right. One of the things that we've been getting a lot of phone calls about is the no solicitation zone. Prior to 2020, it was 100 feet. It's now 150 feet. That doesn't mean that people are still unhappy, or it doesn't mean that people are now happier. The biggest complaint that we get from voters is them being handed literature at early voting sites or polling places. And it's an unfortunate consequence of the fact that we share space with churches, with libraries, with community centers, who not everybody who's going to those places are voters, but everybody who is seeing people come, or those organizations, are trying to get information out, and there's definitely a number of folks who are unhappy with that. Go ahead, go to the next slide. Big, huge ballot this year. Who in here has already voted? Very good. If you live in the city of Gainesville, there are 17 referenda on your ballot. That means beyond all the candidates, beyond the judges, there's 17 different ideas that you're voting on. 6 constitutional amendments, 4 City of Gainesville charter amendments, and 7 Alachua County charter amendments. That's a huge number of things to read, especially if you haven't paid any attention to them prior to going to vote. We try really hard to encourage people to use their sample ballot, which you should have received in the mail, to make their choices in advance. Take that to your polling place and use it as a reference. With the pandemic going on, we have had to limit the number of voting booths. So many of those lines that you see would not have been as bad in 2016, when we could have 3 times as many voting booths and have lines where people were standing right behind one another. But we try really hard to encourage people, know what you're going to do prior to going in there, because that is one of the best ways that we have to combat against the lines. I do foresee on election day that we will have lines in Alachua County, especially in student heavy precincts. Students, as a rule, wait until the very last minute to do anything. So they show up on election day. They do not know where they're registered to vote. They don't know what they're voting on. And that contributes to some chaos within our office. This polling location, the Wyndham Garden Gainesville in 2018, was probably our worst polling location. So you had in 2018, a non-presidential year, about 3 times as many people as normal wanting to use this location. There will likely be additional people this year who want to use this location. We've added additional staffing. We know this to be a weak point now, but the students in some ways put us as elections administrators and themselves as voters in precarious situations by waiting until the last minute. So we've done a number of things to message across the University of Florida and Santa Fe College that it is better to vote early, because every student seems to think that they can just vote at the rights union. And as you all know, you have to vote at your assigned polling place on election day. So if you live off of 20th Avenue or you live off of Archer Road, you don't live on campus, you don't vote at the rights union, but nonetheless, we have hundreds of students who show up on election day trying to vote at those locations or at that location. And that's something, again, just like here, that we're trying to mitigate because it does put us in a bad situation, and it does draw unwanted and unneeded attention to us. Next. I've already mentioned it, but you have 3 ways to vote. You can vote by mail. Today is really the last day when we recommend using USPS to send back your mail ballot. If you're voting by mail and you haven't sent it back yet, use one of our convenient drop boxes, either at an early voting site during early voting hours or at our office, which is available 24/7 up until 7 p.m. on election day. Early voting will last through Saturday. It's open 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. at 6 locations countywide. The closest one to here is probably our office on North Main Street. I know some folks have used Orange Heights Baptist Church. That is definitely the place with the shortest line. Likewise, Legacy Park in Alachua is also a place where the lines are much shorter than the places in Gainesville. Next slide. This is an update on turnout here in Alachua County. This is as of about 9:40 this morning. You'll see that we are quickly closing in on 100,000 voters. During the 2016 presidential election, we had about 128,000 voters, with 164,000 people registered to vote. Since then, we've grown to 190,000 registered voters, and our expectation is that we'll have north of 150,000 of them actually voting. So sometime yesterday, we passed our predicted halfway point. But it could be that even more people decide to go to the polls. One of the things that keeps our registration artificially inflated in Alachua County is that students move away and then they don't tell us, or they move away to Utah or another state, and they never communicate to us that they're now voters in that state. It's a very rigorous process to remove someone from the voter rolls. It takes in total more than 4 years for us to do it, unless, of course, we're receiving communication from the Social Security Administration or from someone else about a voter's death. But it's something that, again, we're a little higher than we probably actually are because of the number of students. But it's likely outweighed by the fact that many of those students don't register here and choose to register in their home county, either voting by mail or going back on election day in order to vote, or during early voting. This is just kind of a graph showing how people vote in Alachua County. You'll see, for the most part, election day voting has been the most popular option. The primary in August was the first time when vote by mail was the most popular option. About 55% of our voters during that election voted by mail. That was coupled with an increase in election day voting, but a decrease in early voting. So if that holds, where there are so many people who are waiting until election day in order to vote, then our office will see over 85% turnout for the 2020 general election. But it's more likely that the early voting and vote by mail has cannibalized the election day voter turnout. So we'll see less voters on election day, but additional voters, as we're seeing now, through vote by mail and early voting. That's from the 2020 primary election. You'll see that early voting was the least popular option. That's actually the option that I push the most to folks. So maybe that's why it's the least popular option. During early voting, the ballot is tabulated as soon as you cast it. You hear the ring, it's tabulated. You can't take it back. There's nothing that can be done to reject it. It's counted then. Vote by mail is a good option. It is a great option for many people, but it does have some pitfalls, such as the signature issues and people's inability people's inability to follow the instructions with the vote by mail ballots. The most likely reason that a vote by mail ballot will be rejected is because it comes back after 7 p.m. on election day. If it comes back after 7 p.m. on election day, there is nothing we can do. And that doesn't mean it gets put in the mail at 6 p.m. on election day. It means it actually needs to physically be in our office by 7 p.m. election day. We can't do anything with it if it comes in later than that. So that's why, again, if you haven't sent it back as of today, utilize the drop boxes or go vote early. Just because you sign up to vote by mail doesn't mean you can't cancel it and vote early or vote on election day. But hopefully for this 2020 general, because of some of the COVID precautions, what we're actually seeing is an increase in early voting and a slight decrease in election day voting. You'll see up here, turnout in Alachua County. Normally, primary elections are between 20 and 25% turnout. This past August, the turnout was 31%. General elections, the turnout is based on whether it's an off year or a presidential year. So during midterm years, the turnout ranges in the last few years from 49% in 2014 to 68% in 2018. So what we saw in 2018 was a huge resurgence in interest in voting in that election. That I think comes from the fact that there were so many competitive races, like the governor's race, like the commissioner of agriculture race, which was ultimately decided by about 4,000 votes. Hopefully this year we don't have any close races like that, because that will definitely change my outlook on the weeks of November 9th. But we're hopeful that everything works out in that respect. And then you'll see our growth in registration. Is Buddy Irby here or on the, he might be on the Zoom. Registration when Buddy was the supervisor of elections from about 1976 to 1992 was well under 100,000 voters. I think in 1993, it was 90,000 voters. And now we're basically at that 200,000 voter point. And it's likely with the influx of students, we'll see north of 200,000 voters in Alachua County as of November 4th. All right, here's my contact information. I think everybody gets their fun and fellowship emails from me though, so you always know how to get me. Speaking of fun and fellowship, please sign up for the November 7th Old Mount Carmel Baptist Church and Pleasant Street neighborhood tour. All right, questions about elections. I got Craig Carter. Let's avoid Craig Carter, please. All right, let's go to a friendly question right here. And then we can go to Craig. And if Wilbur, he's not on the call, is he? Okay, good. Let me make sure he's busy. Oh, no. To put it in the chat. Okay, if you're on Zoom, go ahead and put it in the chat.
Hey, TJ.
What's up?
Hey, first of all, thanks a lot for what you do and being such a great communications representative for Alachua County. Director of Communications, we really appreciate it. So my question is, can you comment on poll watchers?
Yes.
And who can be a poll watcher? Who controls what a poll watcher can do? And if they can try to influence somebody who's going to the polls and is naive or whatever. And I know there's been a lot of buzz about that. And I didn't even know about them until, I've been reading about it. So that's my question. Thank you.
Poll watchers must be registered voters within the county where they're hoping to watch the polls. And they have to be either assigned by a party or candidate in order to be allowed within the polling room. While they're in the polling room, they are not to speak to any voters. It's within statute that they're not allowed to talk to voters, and they can't obstruct the orderly flow of the election in any way. So if they tried to challenge a voter and they did so without any grounds for doing it, then they would be committing a crime and obstructing the election, and would likely be removed from their role by our office. But we get a list 2 weeks in advance of early voting and 2 weeks in advance of election day that we actually have to go through and approve the poll watchers. So everybody who is in the polling room, whether it be a poll watcher or an election worker, has been approved by our office. So a lot of the rhetoric surrounding, that these folks will try to influence the election from within the polling room, I don't think that's fair rhetoric from either party, whether it be the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. Everything I have seen has suggested that they're very respectful individuals who are simply watching over to ensure that the election is conducted properly. And because of the amount of time and preparation that we put into conducting these elections, we invite them to watch. Greg Carter.
Well, to start off with the praise, I went downtown to vote today and it took me 10 minutes in and out. Literally, I parked, went in, voted. Everybody was great. Complimented TJ on the staff there. It was fabulous. Question, and I don't know if it's true or not because I don't believe everything on Facebook. But apparently someone at the Millhopper Library, a lady was stopping cars, people rolled down the window and she was handing them how-to votes. That's illegal.
That is not illegal. Well, it is not illegal in respect to our office. Our office has domain over the 150 feet from the entrance door to wherever that falls within the parking lot. If the police told her because she was impeding traffic not to be there, then that's a separate issue from our office. And, they are welcome to have that conversation or argument with her. But because of people's First Amendment rights to share information, we obviously have to be very careful over what exactly we're saying people can't or can do. Within the 150 feet, if you receive anything or if anybody's trying to solicit you in any way, then that's something that we have control over and something that we can address. But, unless she's out in the middle of 43rd Street stopping everybody from coming into the voting place, then that's not really anything that we have too much control over.
TJ, thanks. I actually went by Millhopper today, and that lady stopped me as I was there, and I told her that I could figure it out on my own. But there was a long line, so I went to the Rights Union, which was empty, which was fantastic. But who sets that 150-foot limit for solicitation? Is that a state statute or?
It's a state. So again, it used to be 100 feet prior to the last legislative session, but the legislature moved it up to 150 feet during the 2019 legislative session. So it made it a little bit further. But one of the things that, we go out and we measure the 150 feet and we have a big long rope and we do it from the door. 150 feet really isn't that long. When you go to the door at Millhopper, the room itself is probably 40 feet long. So you measure that from the door, you're really only in the outer edge of that courtyard area at the Millhopper Branch Library. Now, obviously, you can make your own choices on who to vote for. And you are by no means, I hope everybody knows, obligated to follow this person or an organization's instructions on how to vote. And nobody will know how you vote. But in terms of their right to pass out that information and to communicate it, it's pretty clear that they do have it.
TJ, my question has to do with identification of the voter as they come through the check-in line.
Mm-hmm.
They have a driver's license or a voter registration card that they.
Not a voter registration card, no.
Okay, so
Yeah.
they have to have a driver's license.
There's a list of acceptable identifications. The driver's license or the ID is the most commonly used one, but you could use a student ID with your name on it, as well as a credit card with your name that you've signed. So it's a photo and signature requirement. So you can use up to 2 forms of identification to meet that requirement, but the most common one is certainly your driver's license or ID.
So you actually have to show a photo of yourself?
Yes. Yeah, one of the common misconceptions is that the address on your driver's license has to match the address in your voter registration, but that's not true. They're looking at the picture, they're looking at the signature, and they're comparing the signature you provide at the polling place to the signature on your driver's license or other form of provided ID.
Can I ask a follow-up question about that?
Absolutely.
It used to be that you had a signature on file that the poll worker looked at to compare with your driver's license or whatever you showed them.
Mhm.
But now you have a sort of a computer thing, just like Publix has.
Mhm.
And so it's, whenever
More difficult to sign.
whenever I sign at Publix, my signature's
Mhm.
illegible. How do you compare that with the signature on
So
what they're showing?
again, at the polling places, they don't have your signature. They've never had your signature, even when it was the big polling book. And we still have those big polling books. The signature that they're comparing is the signature that's on your driver's license. So if you give them your driver's license, they're looking at the signature under your picture.
But they could give you 2 other kinds of identification with signatures?
Correct. And again, if somebody votes on behalf of someone, they are committing a very serious crime for which they will be caught more than likely, and they will face the repercussions of that.
Good question, Pete. We verified yours 3 times. All right, next goes to Greg, and then we're going to go back to our president for our chat questions.
Thank you, Jason. TJ, a friend of mine told me this morning that she's volunteering to help rectify mail-in ballots that maybe were improperly filled out in terms of the signature or something not being there. And could you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, that's so mail-in ballots, again, the most common reason for rejection here in Alachua County is you turn it in too late, it doesn't make it to us. The second and third most common reasons are either missing the signature, so just not signing at all, or having a mismatched signature. Now, to Pete's point, when people vote by mail, we are looking at the signature that's on file. So when you register to vote, you either do it on a registration application or at the Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles. We keep those signatures. And that's how we know when you sign a petition, you sign a vote by mail ballot, or you have to vote a provisional ballot for some reason, that it is in fact you signing. If there's not a comparison to be found or a match to be found, then we have to reject those. And there is a cure process that your friend's helping with that allows folks who either didn't sign at all or have a signature that doesn't look like the one that we have originally to cure or correct those ballots and have them ultimately counted. The ultimate rejection does not come from someone, sitting in an office like me. It comes from the county canvassing board. So the county canvassing board is made up of the Alachua County Supervisor of Elections, an Alachua County Commissioner, and an Alachua County Judge. So this year it's Kim Barton, Mary Helen Wheeler, and Tom Jaworski. Those are the 3 individuals who decide whether or not a signature matches or not. And much care is paid to the fact that we obviously want people's votes to count, but if there's not a match to be found, or if you didn't sign at all, there's nothing we can do beyond trying to make contact with you.
TJ, that's a good lead in to Judge Monica Brazington. TJ, thanks for speaking to us today. For people who have signatures who have changed since they registered due to age, injury, etc., how can they update their signature to make sure that their vote counts? So in other words, being proactive, are there other options that may be used by the voter, like making an X mark or using a stamp with the voter's name, etc.?
Yeah, the easiest thing to do, especially if you're someone who recognizes that your signature has changed since you registered to vote, is simply submit a new Florida voter registration application. We use the most recent signature that we have on file for you. Now, if you are someone who has an issue like Parkinson's or something like that, you can sign with an X, or you can use a stamp, which will allow you to continuously execute something that is able to be duplicated. But it has to be you executing that. So that's an important piece of it.
TJ, Scott Winsler asks, do other counties have similar vote counting equipment that we enjoy?
Yes. There's two main voting equipment companies, Dominion and ES&S. I think Dominion, which we use, is probably the lesser popular one across Florida's 67 counties, but it's basically those two companies that create the tabulation machines, and they have to do so following very strict guidelines from the Florida Department of State. Elections offices across the state are very uniform. We are all following the same laws. There may be some local differences in very minute things, but for the most part, where it matters, we have to do roughly the same things. So sometimes people will say, oh, the elections office is so wonderful, or oh, the elections office is so terrible. But really and truly, wherever you are in Florida, you're going to have a similar experience because it is meant to be so uniform.
Thank you. So two-part question. Scott Winsler states, does the supervisor have any special arrangements with the USPS? When do they last deliver? Do they have any delivery times due to the election? I'm going to throw in there because you could handle this. Frank Mason states that if you feel it's too late, can you take your mail-in ballot and go ahead and drop it off at the supervisor's drop box?
So to answer Frank's question, yes, you can drop it off at the elections office 24/7 using our secured staffed drop box. There is now someone there 24/7 through election day watching over that drop box. Or you can go to any early voting site during early voting hours and do the same thing. They're all staffed. Someone will watch you put your ballot in there, and it will be taken back to the elections office that evening. We do have a special arrangement or relationship with the USPS. We're constantly in communications with the local postmaster and other officials from the post office. And on election day, if we have to, we have the ability to go to any post office in Gainesville or in Alachua County to pick up mail ballots. And we often do that because it's really our goal at the end of the day to make sure that nobody's ballot is rejected for some reason that we can help. Now, if you're in Boston and you put your ballot in the mail on Monday, then we're not going to be able to get it, or the USPS is not going to be able to get it to us in time. You can, just because it's a mail ballot doesn't mean you have to use USPS. Some people will overnight FedEx their vote by mail ballot to us. And as long as it's in our office by 7 p.m., we can count it as long as it, meets the other requirements of the law.
When are mail-in votes counted?
So right now, part of the reason that Kim can't be here is because she's in one of those meetings counting the mail ballots. Those meetings during normal years are able to start 22 days prior to election day. The governor, as part of the COVID provisions that were provided, allowed elections offices basically to start whenever they wanted to, counting the return vote by mail ballots. We had our public logic and accuracy test, the test that I mentioned, where we test the machines to show that they're actually counting the ballots as they should, on October 12th, and then on October 14th. And basically every day since, we've had public meetings where we've counted between 3,000 and 10,000 vote by mail ballots.
In that last question, thank you, Maureen Tartaglione. And so Victoria Watson asked, thank you. Well, first states, thank you for great presentation, TJ. Can you tell us what is the best way to verify your vote has been counted / signature approved when voting by mail?
The best way is to go on our website. It's votealachua.com. There's a slider and a button that says track your ballot. After election day, it will show up as counted. But right now, if you voted by mail and the number 3 is highlighted blue, then you can be assured that your mail ballot will be counted. And you can always call me, and I, offer that to anybody, not just folks in this room. If you're worried about it, call me and I can check on it. And it takes 10 seconds and it'll make you feel a lot better.
So Jenny asked, if a ballot arrives via mail on election day and it has an issue that can be fixed, how long do you have to get it resolved?
They have until 5 p.m. on the Thursday following election day. So we don't necessarily, 99% of vote by mail ballots will be counted, or even a greater number, by election night or the early morning hours of November 4th. Now, if there are folks who have issues that are able to be cured, they can cure them up till 5 p.m. on the Thursday. But you're talking about right now less than 100 ballots. There's also some ballots with special provisions, such as military ballots or overseas ballots, that can come in up to 10 days after the election, meeting some other requirements. But again, when you're looking at 150,000 voters, you're talking about less than 150 ballots. It's important to know that unless things are really, really close on election night, and I go to bed every night praying that it's not very, very close, and I frankly at this point don't care who or what wins. It's important to know that as long as it's not close, and perhaps I'm jinxing myself by always saying that it won't be close, we'll know who won Florida, or will likely know who won Florida by 2 a.m. November 4th. And as Florida goes, so goes the rest of the country.
So before my final question and comment based on time, with that great prediction of yours, are you going to Vegas with me afterwards? So
I'm taking a nap. I don't want to.
You don't want to go anywhere.
Go anywhere.
So Patrice Boys, good question. Follow up to a question earlier. What should a voter do if they vote in person on election day, or even early voting? They feel intimidated by persons beyond 150 feet limits on solicitation.
They should, if they want to call our office, they certainly should call our office, and we'll make sure that somebody goes out to that location. But they should also call the police if they're feeling that way.
Very good. And so the last comment that I was going to make is that as I scroll through everywhere, not only many great accolades on the great presentation, but great experiences that each have encountered thus far in the voting process. And so thank you very much.
The only people who ever call me are the people who have the bad experiences. So it is good to know that a couple people have at least had a positive one. But thank you so much, everybody.
So thank you again, TJ. That was, well, I broke that. So that was a great presentation. And as I said, I mean, there's not a question he cannot answer. So he's a walking encyclopedia, and fact check, right? But no, we know you know your stuff. You do it well. You do it with passion, just like you do with Rotary. And so just a small token, our coin, this valuable high dollar coin, it may be a violation of some code of no, not at all. So yeah, right. So it meets the threshold in the test. So thank you very much, TJ. Appreciate all you do. Yes, round of applause again. Appreciate not only what you do for the voter registration in this community, but also for Rotary. Also would be remiss in not thanking my friend Don Bugos here, stepping in. He's been helping in many ways. Yes, round of applause. He helps in the outskirts each week as far as this team of Wes and many others with technology, and Tom being out. And it was a quick yes, just like a quick yes from Jason, and I appreciate you all. They never want to be recognized, but they keep visiting from afar. Hugh Eubank and Mark Landman from Colorado keep zooming in and watching the meetings. So that's another big bonus. We're getting a lot. A part of the Vibrant Club seminar, the district had reached out to us and myself and interviewed and was trying to get details and part of, because I mean, really what we're doing here is kind of a poster child in the district and further. People are looking to this and seeing how it's going, how we're doing it, asking questions. And so everybody that's been a part of, whether you're here or on Zoom and staying apart, you're a key to that success, and it's very much appreciated. So without further ado, quote of the day: someone struggled for your right to vote. Use it. Susan B. Anthony. Have a great week, fellow Rotarians.